afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the ACGC webinar that is specifically for public sector teams. We're really happy to be hosting this webinar today, and we have with us an excellent team that are going to be doing the delivery and facilitation of the conversation. The conversation is about leading public legal teams with purpose. And we're going to be talking about what drives real effectiveness in the public sector legal departments, from leadership and planning to systems that actually deliver. We will have insights from different African jurisdictions, and we're hoping very much to get some from you in the audience who will give us even broader coverage. We'll be taking a practical look at how legal departments can move from strategy to results that actually matter. Our colleagues that are joining us today, our speakers today, we're very delighted to welcome Dapo Oduwole, who is the Director General and CEO of the Office of Public-Private Partnerships, that's Ogun State in Nigeria. Dapo is also the chair of the ACGC Advisory Board. We're also really happy to welcome with us to join us today is Caliis Badoo. Caliis is a director and head of legal and enforcement department at the Securities and Exchange Commission in Ghana. For those of you who attended the ACGC conference in Accra last year, you will have hopefully attended this particular section, those of you who are public sector lawyers, a session that was very much based on these same topics, and we were keen to bring those discussions to a wider audience for those who weren't able to join us at that conference. And Dapo and Caliis have very kindly agreed to rerun that session today for all of you. So I don't want to take up too much time in terms of housekeeping. We're on a webinar, so there's not much in the way of, exits or things like that. But just to give you a quick run through and some of the expectations, Dapo and Caliis will be speaking about a number of themes, which they will introduce in a minute, but we will have regular stops in that process to check in with you. So there'll be some polls and some questions. So please keep an eye out for those popping up on your screens. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Dapo to kick off the discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Duncan. Good afternoon, everybody. I am really excited to be here this afternoon, and it's a fantastic webinar that we've got for all those who are in the public sector or have close links with the public sector. So we'll be talking about, and I call it talking about because it's not a lecture, and it's more of a conversation. So at different stages, we'll be bringing you in, listening to your questions, trying to react to them, and so I'll kick off. So we are looking at effective by design, leading public sector legal teams with purpose. Now, what do we mean by this? Let's look at what we mean by effectiveness. And in the public sector, we serve government, we serve public departments, we serve diverse corporations, ministries, you name it. As long as it's not the private sector, it is public sector, it's government, and it is there to serve the people. So it's quite keen, it's a very good idea that we must be as effective as possible. But somehow that effectiveness still eludes us. And when we say what do we mean by effectiveness, the different ways, different terminologies, effectiveness, efficiency, efficacy. And that's why I say, look, one person's apple of efficiency is somebody else's pear of efficacy. And what does this mean? It means that by design, you're looking at outcomes, you're looking at the results of the effort that you do to serve your legal teams and to serve your organizations. So what activities do you do? Are you in litigation? Are you strictly solicitors? Are you looking at drafting contracts, negotiations, dispute resolution, as the case may be? So how purposive is that legal department? Do you have a development plan? Does it work? Is it fit for purpose? I think you'll find out that as much as we ask these questions, every legal department will have some kind of development plan of some sort. How old is it? Has it been on the shelf since 1963? Is it something that was concocted just so we can have something? Or it's something that we do review from time to time and test it for purpose. Does it serve us? Is it good enough for us? And where does it take us? That's what we would call a proactive development plan. And then you start to look at, I did ask at the top, why does effectiveness still elude us? And, team performance. What do we mean by team performance? How good are we? As public sector lawyers, we have our clients. Do we serve them well? How happy are they? If they were to give us a score from 0 to 100%, where will we be on that scale? And that's the sort of thing we need to look at. And being the public sector, there's a dichotomy, of course, between how we do things and how things in the private sector. Sometimes some say the public sector is fairly traditional, you know. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Don't fix it. We've been doing this for the last 20 years, 15 years, and it works. So why change it? We need to be more incisive in our expectations from the public sector. And for us as public sector lawyers, in how we deliver to our clients, the bar should be lifted high. The bar should be raised high. And I think that that's part of what we're looking at when we say, how effective are we? How efficient are we? And how do we improve our team's performance? Now, effectiveness in the public sector is something that's been viewed on different levels by different organizations. There was a World Bank report in 2018 just on governance for development. This means that the performance of public sector organizations and governments and lawyers has been under development, under scrutiny for quite some time. There were 5 drivers that were recommended by the World Bank in this report in 2018 when it comes to governance for development. And what are those drivers? Top of that is political leadership, and we'll be talking about that in this webinar. And I always team political leadership with performance. Institutional capacity building. You will note that the World Bank added to institutions, governments, government departments, corporations, and ministries. How well do they perform? What sort of capacity do they have to advise their clients? And their clients, like I mentioned, governments. Incentives matter. When you look at who does this work, public sector lawyers are recognized. Are they encouraged? What sort of incentives are available for them, to actually ensure that they're rewarded, they're recognized, and there's that push to say, go one step further, do better, because there's light at the end of the tunnel, or there's some at the end of the rainbow. So we have performance-related pay in the private sector, but this is quite slow in the public sector, not widely implemented. So maybe that's something we need to look at. Increased transparency. Again, I mentioned the last slide, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. That's some people's approach to performance in the public sector. That won't work. So there needs to be transparency. There needs to be, and we'll be looking at the sort of things that we do to measure performance. It needs to be clear. So before lawyers go into it, team members know what to expect. How are we measured? How is performance measured? I'd like to be promoted as public sector lawyer. I'd like to be able to head my department one day. How do I get there? What are those smart steps to take to get me there? This should be clear and apparent to all. And then the World Bank mentioned technology. And we're in the age where we're looking at all sorts of different things, elements of technology, innovation, artificial intelligence, which is quite a hot topic right now. So let's go straight into leadership and productivity. Leadership is always that nucleus, that guiding force that moves legal departments and teams. And when you have strategic vision, leadership, you should be able to guide your teams as to where you're going. So leadership could be a board, it could be a head of legal department, as the case may be. Have vision, and the vision should be, should be visible, should be clear, and you should be able to communicate this. And what do you mean by communication? Talking to people, being able to let your team know where you're going, your objectives, where we want to be at the end of this financial year, where we want to be at the end of this quarter, how we start the next quarter. And any team member should be able to say, this is where the head of legal is going, this is where the board wants to go. So in doing that, leadership should be purposeful and deliberate, not by chance. You can't, like I said to you, previously, if you've done that always for the last 15 years, why change it? Well, you must change it. You must shake things up. Uh, Innovation, it needs to be new. But where are we going with this? Deliberate in terms of clarity and the steps to be taken to get us there. It should be impactful accountability. So, what sort of appraisals do we have in this team? What tools do we have for management? What sort of practical tools? Key performance indicators are quite important. Not so new, but a good benchmark to measure the team's performance. Each team, no matter how well you're constituted, their strengths, you should be able to recognize this. I know my strengths as a manager, my weaknesses as a manager. I know where I'm going. I know what, opportunities are there for this team and what are the threats that we need to account for and work around to ensure that our performance is tipped up and in very good condition. I'm just going to move us to the next slide. Yeah, got that open now. Capacity building was one of the points mentioned in the World Bank report of 2018. Now, I always like to mention capacity building with specialization. And that means that when you're looking to build capacity, there's institutional development and there's personal and individual development. You'll find that I put ACGC there, reason being that ACGC is a great resource point for lawyers across the continent in terms of specialization, in terms of being able to take advantage of webinars like this, training and trading sessions, and of course, ability to build capacity for individuals and teams. Skills update is so important. You need to tool up. And another way to do this is by peer reviews, getting a similar team, either of the same size, smaller or bigger, it doesn't matter. Whether in the public sector, they understand your trajectory, they understand your objectives and the problems that you face. So it's good to invite them in. They can look at your systems, they can look at how effective you are, and you can do the same for them as well. So that's a very good system of peer review. Now, capacity building, when you're looking at public sector teams, you're meant to deal with everything that comes in through the door. You're meant to be the expert. But in moving on, we're in 2025 now, is it good to have specializations or should you be a generalist? It depends on the setup of the team. You have contentious and non-contentious without trying to be too specialist in terms of the disciplines. It's always good to have specialization, have subject matter experts within the team. So we're looking at being better by design, and we're looking at leading public sector teams effectively. So it's good to have specializations and also taking advantage of newer trends in the industry and in terms of expertise. Performance management, I think I've mentioned the different tools that we have, but a good one, a very simple one, which is sometimes missed, are simple things like team meetings, regular team meetings, effective team meetings with proper purposeful agendas that takes us from one point to another. So you don't repeat the same things week after week and month after month. Staff appraisals, you need to develop staff appraisals, and it's always helpful to have know-how and also find out where teams are going from one point to another. So appraise them, give them tough expectations, and review this from quarter to quarter or annually. And this also takes us to targeted training, the sort of training that builds up the team and covers skills gap within the team. It's also always recommended to have a 360-degree appraisal. So the appraiser, as the head of the team, also gets appraised. You get feedback from members of your team as well. So identify gaps, identify barriers to achieving 100% in terms of the performance that the team has. Next slide, please. And before we go into the next session, which would be questions, I just want to deal with the culture of optimization. And what do I mean by this? You find that in legal teams, you're not more than 2 steps away from the next assistance you need. So be it training, be it expertise, be it a buddy system, somebody that you need that will help you and guide you. So you find you don't have to go too far. Sometimes the assistance is within the team, it's from the team leader, it's from a younger member of the team who is maybe IT and very tech savvy. So you find that being incisive and also looking into the strengths that the team has takes us further. By buddy up, it just means that sometimes when a new team member comes in, buddy them up with a more senior member of the team, somebody who's more experienced and can offer them that assistance they need to break out into the sort of work that they need to do and develop skills over time. Information communication and technology is a powerful enabler. It's needed, but it needs to be paired up with the right mindset. So everyone needs to get on board. And it should. I've seen teams where they fashion this out to the newer members of the team or younger members in the white weeks, saying that they are easier. It's easy for them to get onto ICT. It's recommended to spread this around the team. Develop at your own pace, but you must develop. You must get onto that train. And cultural change needs to be woven into the fabric of the team. When there is that appetite for change, for improvement, for innovation, you find that it gets easier and it becomes more natural as far as the team is concerned in terms of development, in terms of optimization of culture, imbibing a culture of change, and also being comfortable with systemic change. I'm going to invite Nankunda to come in now and take us to the next session, the next stage in terms of the questions that we're looking to do.
Thanks very much, Dapo. So that was part one, looking at some of those key points. And at this stage, we would like to get your involvement and engagement in these questions. So in a minute, you're going to see a live poll, in a few seconds rather, popping up on the screen. And the question of the poll is, what's holding back your department's effectiveness right now? So please take a couple of minutes to answer those questions and we can talk about them further shortly. Sorry, I was muted for a minute there. I was just saying, thanks for your responses. It was interesting to see the changes and the results as they came in. And things are looking a little bit tight between lack of strategic direction or visionary leadership and outdated systems or limited resources being in the lead, followed very closely by political interference or unclear mandates. I'm interested in what political interference means, especially in a government entity. And then, to a lesser extent, plans with no KPIs or impact measures. And finally, honestly, we're just trying to survive the week. So those are results. I'm going to hand over back to Caliis and Dapo just for a quick thought about these results and then take it on to the next question in a sec.
Thanks very much, Nankunda. Can I have my slides back up, please? It's quite interesting going through those results, and I like the, I think the one with the least, which thankfully is the one that just says we're trying to get through the week. And there's something to be taken from recognizing that as a practitioner, it shows the importance of positive and strong leadership and purposeful leadership. And hopefully we'll look at that a bit more as we go on with the presentation. So next slide, please. Thank you. Now, the journey of innovation, I've called it that because we've mentioned information, communication, and technology, which is so apposite and so germane today, across the spectrum, and for lawyers, no less. Now, innovation would always, include technology. It goes wider than that. It goes into positive practice. It goes into readiness to imbibe new culture. It involves change, being open to change, being welcome to change, but also innovation in terms of new ways of working, being able to adapt, being able to have a mindset that welcomes, I suppose, stepping out of your comfort zone, which you must do if you're looking to move on. Now, in terms of innovation, I work for a subnational in Ogun State in Nigeria, and one of the levels of innovation that's been done in the last 24 months is the land administration. There's a new system called OLARMNS, is the Ogun State Land Administration and Registration and Management System. Now, what's this about? Very briefly, One thing I've discovered, I work in the public sector like most people or a lot of people here. And in the public sector, I've always struggled with the fact that we love our files, we like our paper systems. And whenever you try to imbibe innovation and move away from that, you get resistance. We've always done it this way. It works for us. Why do we have to go for computerized systems? There are errors. What happens if your system crashes? That's why you have backup systems. That's why you have an ICT system. That's why you have, experts within the organization to help you out. So with the OLAM system, it's computerized and put everything online. So land administration is so important in governments in Nigeria, and I'm sure in many countries. People are always buying land, buying property, exchanging land, investing in property in so many ways. So the system was meant to move, the innovation was to move from a paper-based system into an online system, such that from the comfort of your home, you can identify land you want to buy, you can find out how much it is, you can pay for it, and you can get a land certificate called the certificate of occupancy. And the time to obtain this is getting shorter and shorter and shorter. And that's a positive thing. So that's great. So innovation, you must innovate, I think, or disintegrate. Now, I'm not trying to be a prophet of doom here, but I'm saying that to keep hope alive, to keep performance optimum, and to ensure that we continue to improve performance, become more efficient, improve efficacy, this is something we need to do. Now, I'm going to ask you to please take me 2 slides back. I think I've missed a slide very quickly. That's it, yes. Okay. Next one, please. Okay, I want to talk about one-stop shop. Again, that's innovation. One thing that's been done in Ogun State is that we find out that when investors come into this state, they want to invest in property, in agriculture, in industry, and they need so much information. There are 20 local governments in Ogun State. They need to know where to go to find land, where they can do logistics, where they can set up a new factory. And we found out that rather than go from Ministry of Agriculture to Industry and Investment to cooperatives to the legal department, we have a one-stop shop called Ogun Invest, where anybody can come, get the information they want, get the data they need, get the know-how, they find out how to get all the approvals they need, the certification they need. And we found out that innovation was able to take us there, and that helped. Lastly, the last point I want to make is that I find, and I'm hoping that through this webinar, we'll find that when effective by design, and when there's innovation introduced, when there's performance measurement introduced, public sector lawyers provide sustainability, a great future, and people-focused programs. Thank you very much for listening to me.
Thank you very much, Dapo. Much appreciated. I'm now going to ask Caliis to come in and give us his perspectives on these same issues coming from SEC in Ghana. We will also have a question and an engagement with everybody at some point in that, but over to Caliis first. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And interesting, when I saw the results of the polls, I saw that you had lack of strategic direction, 31%. And then also, I think you had outdated systems. And I was like, wow, this is so reflective, because we've always been saying that leadership is a problem for Africa. So you can see that it is clearly reflecting in the polls. What I was surprised about was how no KPIs contributed very little, because usually if you have a clear direction and you have a clear visionary leadership, then you should have a problem with KPIs. But anyway, I think that's the poll. So I'll look at it from the Ghanaian perspective. What we are doing, like Dapo said, it is going to be interactive. We intend to share what we are doing, in terms of how we work, so that colleagues can also share their perspective. So that will be my outline. I'll move straight into the presentation. And we're looking at efficiency or effectiveness. Okay, the general meaning is producing a desired result. Okay, it's your capacity to be able to deliver a result that you have planned. Now, in my sector, we like to use a lot of standards. So I looked at the ISO 9000. ISO is a set of international standards that is developed by the international standards organizations. And this particular one, the 9000, deals with the framework for quality management systems. So you see that the definition that it gives is that effectiveness is the extent to which planned activities are realized and planned results are achieved. So we get two things from the definition. One is that you have to have activities that are planned. So they are structured and arranged. And at the end of the day, you also have to have results in mind that you have planned to achieve. So they are also arranged. Now, leadership is cause, everything else is effect. We know that John C. Maxwell says that everything rises and falls on leadership. And he also says that a leader is the one who knows the way, goes the way, and actually shows the way. So this is somebody providing direction. It's clear. And that's why the job of providing strategy or long-term objective of an organization is the role of leaders. Okay, so we expect our leaders to lead by first providing direction in terms of our strategic goals or objectives. Now, effectiveness in the public sector must therefore start definitely with our leaders creating what we will call our long-term objectives or strategy. And this is what everybody must follow. Now, so if we move on ahead, we are going to see what would the strategy look like. Now, we are not in a strategic management class, so I'm not going to talk about planning, organizing, monitoring, etc. We are simply saying that we need a long-term view of the organization. In the next 5 to 10 years, where do you want to go? And instead of doing a whole plan, which can be difficult to do, you can just have what we call the strategic priorities. So in a year, a leader can say, okay, this year I have 5 priorities, just in bullet. And then the leader sends it across the entire organization. And then from these strategic objectives, we have everybody identifying their work areas that will feed into the strategic priorities or the strategy that we have. Now, these objectives that we are going to identify as our key areas or key result areas must be smart. They must be, they must be straightforward, they must be measurable, and it must be results oriented. At the end of the day, you should be able to put numbers to that. And then these objectives must also clearly identify activities or what we call actions that are required to be performed by each person. And then once this is distributed, we have to set timelines using what we call the key performance indicators. Now, the key performance indicators are like the measurable, timelines that you have to use to measure whether you are actually achieving your key result area or you are not. And of course, if you don't have a monitoring mechanism, then you are not going to end up anywhere. So you must decide whether you want to do a quarterly monitoring or a half-yearly monitoring or 1 year monitoring. And another thing that most of us don't do in the public sector legal teams is a SWOT analysis of the department. Very critical. Okay, if you don't know your strengths, if you don't know your weaknesses, if you don't know your opportunities, your threats, then of course, even when it comes to appraisal and recommendation for training to upgrade you, if we can't tell your weaknesses, it will be very difficult to prescribe training for you. So I'm going to share what we did with our department last year. So you can see SG1, SG4, SG5. Those are the strategic goals. Now, so it means that last year we had some 5 or 7 strategic goals. And as a result of that, we pulled out our key results areas. So for legal, we review suppliers manuals, we review contracts, we review MOUs. We do legal representation. We provide legal advice to the commission and the departments. But all these areas must be tied directly into the strategic priorities or the strategic goals. So you see that when you pick review of suppliers, contracts, or manuals, it relates directly to strategic goal 1 and 4. Okay. Now, target. What do we aim to achieve for the year, for 2024? All suppliers contracts that are brought to the legal department must be reviewed. Okay, this target is unique because, you know, it is fed into the department. So the department cannot predict that, oh, we're going to have maybe 15 requests for legal opinions. And for that matter, we are going to plan to do 7 first half of the year and then another 8 second half of the year. No, because of the way it comes, our target is to, you know, provide advice on all of them. So first half year performance, it will be all, and second half year performance, it will be all. It is the same for the others, but I'll show you one that we're able to put numbers to. That is 8. You can see that this is review of guidelines, directives, circulars, codes, publication notices. These are the instruments that we use in regulating the capital market. So you can see that the target for 2024 is to review all of them. But when it comes to first half year performance, we decided that there were some guidelines that had already been prepared and needed to be reviewed. So we planned that first half of the year we'll do 10 reviews, and then the second half of the year you do another 10 review. So when you do a mid-year review, you can tell whether you have actually achieved your 10 reviews or not. So some of the key results areas are very difficult to actually put in metrics, okay, but some are very good and you can actually distinguish them from their performance period. So how do we measure the KPIs? In my department, this is what we use, okay? If you make a request for a legal opinion and the request comes with a document that is in 1 to 4 pages, then we have to review it and give it to you the same day, if it just means advising on the same memo you brought. Okay, so if you just need advice on the memo, within 24 hours, you should have it. When it comes to the category 1, which is providing legal opinion on a document that is between 4 to 10 pages, our timeline or our service charter timeline is within 48 hours. So if you go to category 2, where the document is between 10 to 20 pages, then we have 72 hours to, you know, give you feedback. And then, of course, if the document is 20 pages or more, we have 5 working days to deliver your requests. Then if it's a supplier's contract and manual, usually they are big, so we can tell that they are usually more than 20 pages, so standard 5 working days. And we can be measured on this. If a document comes to us and everybody knows this, because this is in our service charter with our other departments, they can tell you, Caliis, you know, you guys have delayed because we gave you this document by a certain time. So this is what we have done to be able to really measure ourselves. This is a sample SWOT analysis that we did. And like I said, it's very simple. Sometimes when you hear them in management class, like SWOT and PESTEL analysis and all that, I mean, it's just very simple. You do your departmental strengths. Our strength is that we have a great ability to, you know, look at detail. So attention to detail is a key strength in the legal department of the SEC. And then we also have ability to work with all other departments very seamlessly. In fact, we join them in meetings, we have discussions in our department. So it's a relationship that is well coordinated. And then we have the required skill set. If we go to department weaknesses, you see that in that place, the required skill set is there, but it's in small quantities. So we have an issue with numbers. So when it comes to quality, we have the quality. But when we go to the weakness, then you see that the quality is in minimum terms. Then we also have the ability to defend our cases at the barest minimum cost. So whatever cases are filed in court, once we are handling it, on the average, within 6 months, no matter how the situation is, we should be able to get out of the situation. And this is, of course, excluding an appeal that can take a longer time. If you look at the opportunities that we have, our staffs are open-minded. They are willing to be trained in new products in the market. You know, with the capital market, today you have crowdfunding, tomorrow you have stable coins, another time you have cryptos. So we keep getting new, you know, products on the market, and that requires training. We also collaborate with other departments, and we believe that we are ready to deploy innovation. And we believe that our department or the SEC is trying to introduce what we call a risk-based supervision framework. This is going to take us from the compliance monitoring that we have been doing. And the RBS framework simply allows us to deploy resources to critical areas. So it's not all play all. It's not 4 people for each licensee. No, some licensees may pose a greater risk to the market. So we have to deploy more resources towards that risk compared to the other department. When it comes to the threats, of course, lack of information sharing. I mean, we have a bit of the silo situation in our department, in our workplace. So sometimes you have departments, keeping information, and sometimes sharing it, without request is good, because information that is not shared poses a risk to the institution. So we believe that that's something that we can improve on as an SEC team. Then there's inadequate training, because of the nature of the kind of products we regulate and the different types of regulations that come up. We require, regular training to be updated. And one of the threats we see is when we make recommendations from the legal department and it goes to executive management for implementation. Sometimes there are a lot of factors that are considered before the implementation. And we believe that that's a genuine threat that we need to watch. Inadequate number of personnel and the lack of research materials. This is improving, but it used to be a very big problem until we had our own chambers stocked with well-researched materials, and we subscribe to some online law reports. So, like I said, if you want to quantify your activities, you have to find a way to break it down into pieces. And that's the only way by which you can measure, because if you can't measure anything, you really cannot manage it. So find a way to put some of your activities within frames that you expect to deliver those pieces of advice. Now, just to show you how our placing our activities within some metrics helps us. You would see that this is 2023 Legal and Enforcement Department report. This is one of the advantages that you have when you use numbers. Okay, this is the whole report, and anybody can tell that, oh, okay, if you look at the table, you can see the pie chart, you can see that hearings, that is hearings when it comes to complaints. Okay, people file complaints from the market, then it comes to the SEC and we need to hear. There are 3 different types of hearings that we have, and they are in the different sections that we've mentioned about. So you can see that hearings is actually taking about 51% of our time. Okay, but this really is not a core activity. Now, if we are not measuring and creating this pie chart, we would not know this. Okay, and I can compare this to 2024. Okay, if you look at hearings, which is now in yellow, you can see it has dropped to 14. Now, what happened? We were able to present this data over the years to our superiors that it looks like a lot of time from the legal department is being taken by hearings, which is really not a core activity for the department. Based on the history and the pie chart we produced, 2024, it was decided that hearings should go to its mother department. So you can see that the data allowed us to be able to push out hearings such that now you can see we only contribute 14% of our time towards hearings. So we are still supporting the core department responsible for hearing, but it's not taking our time anymore. And you can see that automatically legal opinions, reviews, and advice, which is the core activity for lawyers, has moved to 50%. Okay, if we didn't have this data and we're not recording our activities on monthly basis, on quarterly basis, on half-yearly basis, on annual basis, we would not be able to justify removing the legal department from the types of hearings that we're doing. Now you can also see the half year for 2023. Okay, you can compare it to 2022, and you can tell which area is increasing and which area is going down. And around this pie chart, we have a departmental, activity explanation that we give, and we try to explain why activities have gone down and why others are going up. All this happens because you are able to put your activities in metrics, because we believe that if you can't measure, you cannot manage. We measured our performance in 2023, presented the case to executive management in 2024, and now we are managing our department without hearings, which is a core department, another core department work. It's important, therefore, to use data and metrics to track your progress and performance. How do you measure performance? There are various scientific models, okay, for measuring performance and even for helping you to reward high performance. Okay, for example, how do we pay incentives? Okay, 13th month is paid in the public service, I mean, at least in Ghana, straight across. It's a flat amount across board for everybody. So it doesn't take cognizance of performance. Okay, everybody gets it, whether you are performing or not. Okay, but there are some places that are doing better in terms of, giving bonus. In some places, bonus also take the same straight line method, 10% gross across board. But if you have set scores, okay, and indicated descriptions to the scores, if you get 86 and above, you have exceptionally exceeded the expectations. You get 76 and this, you have done this and all that. Why don't you use the performance again to pay bonus? So I suggested to a colleague who was complaining that they get the same thing, that he should look at the second table. You can see that because of the situation in the first one, where everybody gets a flat amount for everybody, and it's not good, we have introduced something like this. If you get 86% and above, you should be able to get 100% of your 10% gross. Okay, but if you get up to 85%, then you should get 85% of your 10%. Okay, and it's the same, it applies across board. So even quantifying or helping to measure your activities also allows you the opportunity to be able to determine how to actually reward people. Now, I think we can stop here and bring in the poll, and then I can continue with the use of ICT and innovation and training.
Great.
Yeah.
I'm here. Thank you so much, Caliis.
Yeah.
I've learned a lot actually just from that particular process. I've been thinking a lot about pestles and things like that. So this is really helpful, and it makes me think about the previous poll response about political interference and wondering, we don't have to talk about that now, but I'm just thinking about the extent to which when the department is being super effective, like you are, but you're operating within a bigger entity, and whether that entity, if it doesn't match you in the event that it doesn't, how do you manage to sort of stay focused? But
Okay, so
oh yeah, go ahead.
I watched the post closely, and I think that's the second one. That came about 23% outside the strategic direction and outdated systems. So it tells you that once you're in the public sector and you have superiors above, we'd like to operate within the chain of command. So even though you are the expert, all you do is still make a recommendation. So I wasn't so surprised that, that particular item came as the second, most challenging situation for public sector lawyers. And again, we can see it's the same. It's 31, and then you come to political. And this tells us that we are all public sector people. Thank you. That's my comment.
Thank you so much. So I'm just going to ask Oladimeji, please, to put up the next poll. Thank you very much. I hope you can all see it. And you've got a couple of minutes to think about and respond. What skills gap do you wish your office would prioritize this year? You've got some choices there.
I'm a bit surprised by this because, but I think it's usual with lawyers. I would have gone for data analytics or analysis and reporting, but you can see this is a legal team. But I'm happy that we have strategic planning, we have leadership, and then digital tools, because those are some of the things that we really need as legal departments in the public sector. And you can see budgeting and public procurement is not a problem because there's a whole department that usually does that. So usually the lawyers do not worry themselves so much about it. I think it's good. It's good. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. And just to remind everybody, there is the Q&A box is open. So if you have any questions for our speakers or comments that you want to make, please do feel free to make them, and we will have some time at the end for Q&A. So I'm handing over back to you, Caliis.
Okay, thank you. So another key element that we need to look at as public sector legal teams or lawyers is the use of ICT. You know, our profession is such that it is very difficult to change. Okay, yesterday I was reading and I came across a statement that only lawyers write 10,000 pages worth of material and still call it a brief. Okay, and that tells you, how people look at us. And I think that is the more reason why we need to invest in ICT, because you need to change the organizational culture. I mean, where we are going, it's obvious. Okay, very soon, a lot of the things we do, we will be able to do them on our phone. So we believe that it is very important. Michael D. Watson is a professor of leadership and organizational change at the IMD Business School in Switzerland. Okay, he thinks that culture is how things are done in organizations, and he says that whether we like it or not, the cultures exist in our organizations and they actually affect our behavior. So if we want to deploy new things like ICT, then of course we need to first change our culture, change our values, and then the infrastructure can come in. Okay, if you don't change the culture, and you don't change the values, and then you bring in the infrastructure, it becomes a white elephant. And then we also must ensure that we have ICT policies and procedures. Where I work, we have an IT department that does regular training, because not all of us are at the same level when it comes to the use of technology. As I'm speaking now, there's a training going on how to use our enterprise resource planning infrastructure. Okay, if these are in place, then of course, if ICT comes in, it will bring in efficiency. There are also basic examples of things that we don't need training on. Okay, sometimes you just need to go to YouTube and then allow somebody to teach you for free. I use my Microsoft Pilot a lot. And these days, when I even don't go into meetings, once I've been invited, it goes into the meeting and it brings me feedback. Sometimes it brings me pictures and recordings, and then it summarizes for me. So I'm able to be everywhere now. It's also important to know that sometimes you have emails to send, you're likely to forget. You can schedule sending emails, okay, reminders, access to OneDrive, legal software, everything is available. And these are the basics in terms of ICT, but we believe that when we deploy it in our public sector legal teams, they are going to be effective and it will reflect in our efficiency. Next slide is capacity building. Now, this is a huge challenge for lawyers within the public sector because there's always what we call resource constraint. But Alvin Toffler says that the illiterate of the 21st century will not be those who cannot read and write, but those who cannot learn, unlearn, and relearn. Okay, so it means that the learning must be ongoing. And for my sector in particular, like I told you, you can't sit in the office for 3 months without learning something new, because the market players lead the market. They bring up innovations and you have to now struggle to regulate those innovations. So it's important that we follow appraisal systems and assessments, and then we actually train lawyers with the recommended training programs. Okay. And like I keep saying, government departments are always a challenge because of resource constraints, but we also did not learn everything in school. We must learn to adapt to new developments. In my space, for example, like I told you, I don't do cryptos, but I have to learn about cryptos to be able to regulate it. I don't do machine investment advices or robo advices, but I have to study them to be able to regulate them. I don't do high frequency trading, but that's what a stock exchange may be doing. Okay, we have initial coin offerings, we have voluntary carbon markets. These are all things that were not taught us in school. But if you use technology well, you can be able to educate yourself on some of these things. Now, professional associations like ACGC, like what we are doing, it's also, a point where you can actually share knowledge. Okay, if you belong to ACGC, they send so much resource around in the emails and webinars by specialists, etc., and materials, research materials that are available. So you can look at the ACGC, you can look at the IBA, you can look at the Commonwealth Lawyers Association, your local bars also organize CLEs, or what we call continuous legal education. Okay, there are so many training modules. These days, the modules are such that you can go and train yourself, and then your certificate is automatically given. And key organizations for my market include IOSCO. IOSCO is the International Organizations of Securities Commissions. That brings all of us together. And this is our mother body when it comes to issuing standards. Okay, so you can't be within the SEC and not know about the core objective of IOSCO and the 38 principles of IOSCO. No, it's the same for the banks. Okay, the Banking Committee on Banking Supervision, they have their own 29 principles that they work with. The International Insurance Association supervisors, they also have their own, I think, 14 principles, and it's like that. So let's look at professional organizations that are able to host these materials. Toronto Center is another one. They have a lot of materials, and we can also use that if we don't get the support from government to train. We can use these resources to train ourselves. Then specialization. One thing we've realized is that most of the legal department, especially if it's a small one and it's not structured, then you all do everything. Okay, but if it's well structured and you have quite a number of lawyers, then I would say that there should be things that everybody should do, but there should also be things that only certain people should do because of their background and knowledge in those areas. Okay, Plato says that each man is capable of doing one thing well. If he attempts several, he will fail to achieve distinction. He will fail to achieve distinction in any. So once you become jack of all trades, there's a problem. Ralph Waldo Emerson also says that the shoemaker makes a good shoe because he makes nothing else. Okay, he's just specialized. And all these things, I believe, we learn them from Adam Smith in our economics class, that specialization produces efficiency. Okay, so let's try as much as possible, even though we are all doing everything. In my department, for example, we all provide legal advice. No matter the department the request is coming from, we all do that. We all review suppliers' contracts, etc. But not all of us work on requests coming from exchanges and markets. Okay, not all of us work on requests coming from issuers department, because these are unique areas. And so you need to identify people who have the talent for these areas and then let them handle those departments and then feed you with the knowledge. And I think it's a good way to actually narrow down on the timelines for delivery. And so specialization eventually will reduce your workload and give you quality advice. Why? Because the guy keeps working in that area. Okay. And if you keep working in an area, it's easy for you to just wake up and provide advice in the area. And we believe that when it comes to public sector legal teams, we should consider specialization. Then also we have to invest in ourselves. Okay. Like I said, with government departments, our main challenge is training. Okay. Sometimes they give you training, but it doesn't really match up to the recommended appraisal training. Okay. Mahatma Gandhi says that you have to be the change you want to see in the world. Okay. So if I need training on pie charts or PowerPoint presentations or Excel, and I'm not getting it from my office, can't I set aside a small amount of money that will be paid to me at the end of the month and then get a friend to walk me through? I don't want to be a professional Excel user. I just want to be able to use Excel for basic things. So this emphasizes personal action and responsibility in creating positive change, highlighting self-development as a catalyst for broader transformation. Okay, like we mentioned, there's limited resources, but there's also free online courses. There are free subscriptions to, activities that you may want trading in if you are a member of some organizations. Okay. In our office, these are some of the organizations that we also subscribe to. FSI Connect has a learning platform that has virtually everything. Okay. Especially when it comes to management, business, legal, etc. We also have our Mother Bodies portal. Once you are subscribed to it, all new standards that come into the market, you get it first. So you are able to be on top of your market. UNITA is the United Nations Trading and Research Institute. Okay, they occasionally also provide very useful training in these areas. ACGC is there, IBA is there, CLA is there. So let's invest in ourselves, because we know our employers always have the excuse of not giving us, enough, and budgets are always slashed. So I think we can do investment in ourselves. Then also, we have to be innovative. Okay, the best way to predict the future is to invent it. That's Alan Kay. Okay, we don't want to change the status quo, especially in our profession. Okay, but we know that if you look at the book that Robert Eager wrote, it says you innovate or you die. You see, you go around, you see things changing around you. We are there, and then the next moment they say we are using an enterprise resource planning platform. You have to use it. You can't be a loner within the entire organization. So you have to learn to be innovative. Okay, our work is constantly evolving, and we need to innovate to stay relevant and successful. If we fail to do this, then of course we risk becoming obsolete and then dying out eventually. So to stay ahead of the pace, we need to also be innovative in the things we do. Like I said, lawyers like to write reports with prose because we write a lot. Okay, we write addresses, we write pleadings, we write affidavits, etc. But let's begin to put some kind of data or metrics or science into our work. And usually when you do these things, you are able to actually measure yourself better. But just bare word documents are not so good these days. So I think this is the end of my presentation. If there are any questions, I think we can still share ideas. And I'd like to hear from participants also. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Caliis. Very much appreciated. I, for one, would be very happy to join either yours or Dapo's teams. I particularly appreciate the perspectives on training, team development, and personnel development, and a variety of skill sets, because you've both illustrated other skill sets that are actually really helpful. They're not just legal. So I would like to invite the audience and participants to please drop any questions you have, put your hand up if you want to ask a question or comment. We'd be very happy to receive those. We still have about 10 minutes left, so we've got plenty of time. Okay, we have a question from Max Kinotti. Max wants to know, in what ways do you think social media helps legal teams in the public sector to succeed?
Yeah. So just yesterday we had a webinar on the social media, but this is at church. And what I learned is that, some of the apps that we have today, they help provide information. Okay. So for example, on social media, I can get real-time information on court judgments. Okay. We have social media platforms like WhatsApp, where when a judgment comes up, immediately your classmates will put it online. It's the same with other organizations that you belong. So I think it's very helpful. And the only thing is that we have to be careful on maybe the usage, because it can also become addicted. And I also learned that yesterday, the WHO has come up with guidelines on screen times. Okay, now your phones can, if you think that you are doing too much on social media, your phones can turn you off or put it off. So I think it's very useful. LinkedIn in particular is very useful if you're looking for speakers for conferences, you're looking for peer colleagues who have written things that you want to discuss or share about. So I think this will be my perspective on social media for legal teams. Thank you.
Thank you, Caliis. Thanks very much. We have Joyce just simply wants to appreciate both the presenters for your profound insights. So thank you, Joyce. Chidima has a question. I want to ask, when it comes to innovation, specifically automation of legal services, is it possible for the department to implement the innovation without seeking approval from the wider organization?
I will try to answer this one. I'd say, Chidima, first of all, one of the things I spoke about in my presentation was transparency. It's good to be transparent, but also seize the mantle of innovation. So there's nothing wrong with innovation, but what our caution is, it won't be innovation for innovation's self. Innovation will usually be to improve the provision of legal services by the department. So I also mentioned appraisals. Part of appraisal is having proper communication, two-way communication with the leadership of the department. So it's always good to get approvals first, because at some stage, the innovation at whatever level will come to the notice of the team leaders or the head of legal or the board, as the case may be. So I would say work hand in hand, work closely, have free flow of information and communication, and ensure that those fantastic ideas you have are actually approved before you implement them.
And just to add to that, I will take it from this point of view. There are some innovations that you can deploy if you're putting pie charts and histograms on your reports. You don't need any approval. But if you're looking towards using a software, with the public sector, you must actually go through procurement. And the reason why some of the serious public sector players would not want you to deploy platforms in their office just like that is because of ICT policy and cyber security. Okay, whatever you are bringing, it must be assessed, and then the risks that it poses to the organization must be mitigated. And for my market, it's very crucial because we keep people's information, so we really care about the kind of software that you want to deploy. So for some, you need permission because you even need funding for it. For others, I think you can just use them. Thank you.
Thanks very much, both. This is a question with regards to attorneys general, and can they meet or discuss on how to improve the work conditions and remuneration of state counsel, as it's very important in performance of lawyers. Neither of you are attorneys general, so I don't know if you have a thought or comment or how
I
closely.
do. I used to be an assistant state attorney, so I have an idea. And yeah, okay, for us, I can speak from the Ghanaian perspective. We had a lot of attrition at the Attorney General's department. Lawyers were just leaving and going to the private sector because of poor conditions. So a decision was actually taken to bring their level very close to some of the lower court judges. So now you have a lot of people actually going there to work. So yes, you can negotiate, and it was a negotiation. Okay, they came together and then they discussed how their conditions of service were so poor that their colleagues in the private sector institutions were way ahead of them. And so there's always the need to discuss. And I believe as lawyers, you have everybody everywhere. You have judges, you have, ministers, you have the presidents, you have lawyers everywhere. So they can also help you with, lobbying and getting conditions made better. Thank you.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you, Caliis. Just to add to that very briefly, I think that it's a very good idea for attorneys general. And this can be two ways. One, attorneys general for a nation can meet together, and I believe they do meet. One of the things they can look into will be the conditions of service and remuneration for their lawyers. In my presentation, I mentioned team morale, and that's so important because we do know that in the public sector, it does take a little bit of time to catch up in terms of remuneration, salary increase, as the case may be, and the rates of development there is not as prompt as in the private sector. So I think any way that team heads of legal, attorneys general can actually collaborate and meet and discuss terms of condition or conditions of employment is quite important. The other thing also that encourages that I mentioned 360-degree feedback, which is that it's also a good idea for attorneys general to speak to their teams as well, to speak to their directors and their team leads and know what's going on. You see, because it's so easy and tempting for the heads of legal or the board to live in some kind of utopia, and is what happens in every organization where the top 10% earners are not aware of the conditions of the lower 10 or 20%. So it's getting a good feel of the organization, communication both ways, finding out how things are going, what's going on, and what they can do to actually improve the lot of their lawyers.
Thank you very much, both. We have two notes of appreciation both from South Sudan, one from Cosmos Jima, and another one from Noel Marley. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We've also got a comment from Adeyemi, which is, thank you so much. Maybe ACGC can do a paper and send to the Attorney General of the participant states or countries. It's
Yeah.
interesting. We have actually been approached with regards to an institution that is trying to have an Attorney General, an African Attorney General's kind of conference and bring together. And there was one already, but it's a tricky one because it involves several countries, and some in countries like Nigeria, where you have federation, you have several Attorney General. But it's something to absolutely consider. And you're right. We appreciate that. I do have one last question for you two, which is to do with AI. So I'm just going to, it came through the chat. It's is AI a real opportunity for public sector legal teams or just another shiny tool with no budget or capacity to implement? Caliis, you talked about co-pilots and the ease with which some of these tools can be used. Do you want to kick off?
Yes, I think it's a tool that you can actually use to your efficiency because, like I said, I'm here right now. I may not be taking notes, but my co-pilot is taking notes for me. Okay, that allows me, if I have another meeting, I'm sure it's also in that meeting recording for me. So you can actually take advantage of the situation and use the very basic ones that you understand. There are a lot more AI tools in the system. And the last I heard an advert say that 23 million people use ChatGPT every day, but they only use it for very basic questions. Okay, that means that we have not reached the level where we can actually challenge the AI and use it for complex things. And I think we should all learn gradually and then train ourselves in using some of the ones that can actually assist our work.
Dapo, do you have a comment on that?
Oh, just a very brief one. I think innovation has come to stay in the legal practice and in the legal space, as has the use of information, communication, and technology. And I think that's the way forward. And I think you must imbibe it in every way. So, if you look at legal practice, a lot of the work is repetitive and mundane when it comes to paperwork and forms and drafting and having templates which you can use. And that's where AI becomes very useful. And I think you need to know that. You need to use that. It's very helpful. What Caliis just mentioned now, the note taker, that's brilliant as well. The use of ChatGPT. I was even aware of the statistics of the number of those who use ChatGPT and how it's, what level it's used. But I'm familiar that yes, there's so much more it can be used for. And it's like our telephones and our smartwatches, we tend to use about 25% of the capability, and there's so much more we can do with these with these devices. And I think of the same thing with the introduction of innovation and ICT into the legal space. I would encourage it, and I think it's the way forward.
Thank you very much, both. We've still got a couple more questions, and I don't know if you are able to give 10 more minutes, maybe. Are you happy to do that?
Yeah.
Dapo, Caliis?
Oh, yes,
thank
certainly.
you.
Yes.
Yes, no one's
Yes.
moving. People are just asking more questions. They're coming in through the chat.
Sure.
So one of the top concerns from the ACGC survey that was undertaken earlier this year was burnout. How do you actually build a high-performing public legal team when morale is low and resources are thin?
Interesting, very interesting. For some time now, we've been speaking about well-being. And I think that's one of the things that we have not taken seriously as lawyers. And I have a saying that as lawyers, we always try to solve our clients' problems, but we don't solve our own. Okay, so if somebody brings a will right now, you quickly do it. But when you are asked, have you done your will? Like, oh, I'm going to do it, So your well-being is very critical. For the established institutions like ours with public sector, usually you have a whole human resource department that has something for well-being. We get experts to come and train us on mental health and all kinds of things. But for small legal teams, what I would recommend is that get a well-being champion. Okay, you can't set up a whole department just for well-being. Because maybe you may not be in the full public sector. You may be in a firm with just 7 people. Get a health champion or a well-being champion who would follow the standards and documents that are issued by other organizations and then summarize it and share it within the organizations. We don't take leave too. I think if we can take leave, it will help us a lot because you always come back refreshed. So that's what I'll say. Thank you.
Thanks,
Thanks.
Dapo.
That's great, Caliis. I would say that the question was how do you avoid burnout and still maintain high performance? I remember having a seminar many years ago, and this same question came up. And one thing I recommended was this: if you're in a profession like ours, the group profession, where there's a lot of stress, there's a lot of pressure, there's certain good habits you must maintain. One is closing time. Determine your closing time, but observe it. For some, then there are different ways of doing this. Some would leave at 5, some are very regular 9 to 5 people. It's difficult to do that in the legal department, but you can do it. But have closing time. If it's 7 p.m., that's it. No more phone calls with work. And it's difficult, some will think, how can I say the next thing I'm going to say? If you can avoid it, don't take work home. Now that's tight, that's difficult, but what I'm trying to say here is discipline, and your welfare. You need to look into it yourself because nobody's going to come and talk to you and say, oh, please give up work, put it down. You've got to maintain it yourself. Have a discipline, have closing time, have your boundaries. There's work time and there's leisure time, and try not to cross them too much. Sometimes, yes, the boundaries are blurred. You can't avoid that because we all are in a high pressure environment, but just inculcate some very good habits. Leisure time. Sometimes, one Saturday out of 3, just don't do any work. There are different ways. For me, my closing time is I don't have a TV in my bedroom. I just don't. So I make sure that my TV is in the living room. Once I get up, that's it. No more screens for me. And that was tight, but I had to teach myself to do that. So different ways, different folks, different, strokes for different folks. Some things work for me, may not work for you. Some things work for you, but have your discipline and stick to it. Look after yourself, your mental welfare. Because the saddest thing I would say, I don't want to talk too much about this, but look, for all of us here, let me look at this. There are 37 of us now. There were 46 of us earlier on. Whatever it is we do, I'm sorry, if you drop off and you fall ill, somebody will pick it up tomorrow. Somebody else will pick it up, and the organization moves on. Never forget that. So look after yourself.
Right. There is one last question, and I'll just give it to you in case you can do it quite quickly. If Dapo and Caliis could fix one thing in the system tomorrow to make your legal team more effective, what would it be? So just one thing.
Wow.
I think, like I said, I want training in specific things. Okay, so I want training in data analytics. And I believe my team also likes it. It's because the environment in which I am, you have the accountants and the finance guys, they use this every day. So if you don't use it, it's like you're out. So that's what I will recommend for my department if it's going to be just the one thing that I think maybe next year, because we've done our KPIs already, next year we'll do. Thank you.
Because Dapo.
For me, a focused, proactive, sustainable reward system for lawyers in the department.
That's nice.
Because that will give them encouragement, and they know that somebody's looking out for them, and there's something at the end of the tunnel. There's light at the end of the tunnel. There's a candle burning brightly, and it'll burn nicely for them.
Well, I tell you what, you both demonstrated by those answers that you're thinking about other people. It's that personal development and keeping your people happy that makes you the leaders that you are, clearly. And I think that's really wonderful. I'm sure everyone's thinking the same thing. You didn't say anything about yourself. You didn't say anything about somebody over there. It was just about your team and empowering them. And I think that's a wonderful note on which to close. We do have a couple of questions in the QA, but I'm not going to read them out because we've really run out of time and we've gone past our thing. If you want to type in a response, by all means, feel free, the two of you. But I just want to conclude the webinar with a huge thanks to you two. That was so excellent. I just wish we could bottle it up or, do more of these, maybe even. It would be wonderful. ACGC is really keen on making sure that public sector lawyers are supported as much as possible within our activities, because very often it's less easy for them to go to events and other things. Our annual conference is coming up, and we always have a discount for public sector lawyers for that. That will be ACGC 2025 annual conference, which will be in Livingston in Zambia, 1st to 3rd of October. We always aim to have a session or two that touch on public sector issues or is entirely dedicated to that. So we hope as many of you that are able to attend will be able to come. Oladimeji put in the chat the link to the conference and how to register. So please do so. The only other thing I wanted to sort of conclude with is that I like the suggestion about having a report or some sort of report for Attorneys General, and maybe we should do a survey, a similar one to the one we did earlier this year, but very targeted to just public sector lawyers, and that would be an interesting one to disseminate to governments. So on that bright note, thank you all so much for joining us this afternoon. I think that was a really excellent engagement and webinar. Thank you so much, Caliis. Thank you so much, Dapo, for your time and interest and support always. So we'll close off here and wish you all a fantastic afternoon.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And thanks to
you
the
very much, everyone.
ACGC team in the
Thanks
background.
for logging on. Thanks for joining us. It was great fun.
Thank you.
Yes, indeed.
Bye.